a Detroit basement, a woman's hands move through fabric and thread. The fourth coat of the night takes shape under a 1974 Singer machine. Each coat carries a tag, handwritten, "Stay warm, baby," and a stitch no one has seen, a double-cross reinforcement to outlast 3 winters of rough wear. She doesn't know that one coat will walk Paris runways and launch a $200 million brand.
This coat is so warm. It's like a shield.
25 years later, that coat hangs in the office of fashion CEO Matthew Owens. He built his brand around its secret. For 6 years he's searched. Investigators, shelter records, dead ends. Only a stitch pattern. That stitch became his signature, called brutalist tenderness by critics. But they never knew its origin. He's searching for the hands that gave warmth to a forgotten boy.
Somebody knows who made this. I'll find them.
While Matthew searches Detroit for the maker, the woman who invented the stitch still sits at her machine. Emma Thompson, 78, has never stopped.
2 decades I've been doing this. Double-cross the thread, pull tight, and the seams hold through anything. Let 'em play hard in the snow.
Her coats reach New Hope Shelter across the city, where children arrive with nothing but the cold still in their bones. Each one a secret act of care. Every coat gets the same reinforcement and a small tag sewn in by hand. The same 4 words she writes each time, like a blessing. "Stay warm, baby."
That's all they need to know. Somebody saw them. Somebody wanted them to be warm.
For 15 years, she delivers the boxes to the shelter doorstep before dawn. Always anonymous, never waiting for a thank you.
I wonder sometimes if they ever think about who made these, but it don't matter. The coat is what matters.
The double cross stitch, her hidden signature, stronger than any factory seam. But in 15 years, no one has ever asked her about it.
One day, maybe, someone will notice. But today, there's another coat to finish. Another child who needs to feel wrapped in love.
Matthew's detectives have nothing. Every shelter director from 2001 has retired or moved on. The anonymous donor left no trace.
How can someone make 400 coats and just disappear?
Then, a fashion editor writes about his Paris show. A full-page photo of the double-cross stitch, celebrating its raw beauty. The article calls it brutalist tenderness. A stitch that looks like it could mend a broken bone. In Detroit, Grace Henderson, shelter director of New Hope, picks up the magazine during a coffee break.
That stitch, I've seen it before. On the coats, the anonymous coats. No, it can't be. That exact cross? The angle?
She rushes to a storage closet and pulls out a worn child's coat from the shelter archives.
Same stitch, same tag. Stay warm, baby. After all these years.
Grace stares at the magazine, then at the coat. Somebody needs to know about this. Grace Henderson picks up the phone and dials the number from the magazine. Her heart hammers. This stitch belongs to someone she's never met.
You are saying my brand's signature stitch was first sewn onto a shelter coat.
I've seen it on dozens of coats from an anonymous donor. The same double cross, the same tag.
Where are you? I'll be there in an hour. Don't move.
Matthew cancels his meetings and drives straight to New Hope Shelter. Grace waits in the conference room with the coat and the magazine. She lays the old coat beside the glossy photograph. The 2 stitches sit side by side, identical down to the last twist of thread.
It's her. Every loop is exact. 25 years, and I am finally looking at her work.
I shouldn't give you her name. She chose to be anonymous for 15 years.
I've spent 6 years and a fortune searching for her. Please, I am not here to cause harm.
Emma Thompson. Last I knew, she lived on Kenwood Street. Here is the address. Don't upset her.
Back in his office, Matthew carefully lifts the original blue coat from its glass display. He's kept it untouched for 25 years.
That first winter in the shelter, I put this on and felt like a regular kid, like somebody out there knew I deserved to be warm.
He places it with reverence on a wooden hanger, wraps it in a garment bag, and carries it to his car like a fragile treasure. The drive across Detroit feels longer than any runway he's ever walked. Memories of cold shelter nights push forward.
Her stitch is woven through my company, and she has no idea. What do I even say to her?
He turns onto Kenwood Street. Hers is a small house with a screened porch and a yard full of old rose bushes. A light glows in the living room.
What if she doesn't remember this coat? What if my whole search ends with a stranger closing the door?
In the passenger seat, the old coat lies across the hanger, its faded blue fabric catching the afternoon sun. The tag reads, "Stay warm, baby," like a quiet command.
She wrote those words for a child she never met. Now I have to show her what they built.
He steps out, coat in hand, and walks slowly up the cracked concrete path. Every step feels heavier than the last. On the porch, Matthew lifts his hand to knock, then hesitates. His reflection in the storm door holds the tiny coat like a question.
25 years I've carried this coat. Now the woman who made it is behind this door.
He knocks softly. Inside, the humming of a sewing machine stops.
Who could that be at this hour?
She climbs the basement stairs, wiping her hands on her cardigan. The front door is just a screen of lace and shadow. When she opens the door, the first thing she sees is not the man, but the coat. A child's coat, faded and familiar, hanging in midair.
She's looking at the stitches. She knows.
Something about this coat pulls at my chest like a forgotten dream.
The tag hangs facing her. 4 words she wrote 1,000 times. Emma freezes. The man behind the coat steps forward. No one speaks.
I think you made this. She's staring at the stitching. Her fingers are trembling. She knows it's hers.
Emma's hand moves as if on its own, pressing against the screen to trace the double-cross pattern she invented decades ago.
This is my stitch. Double cross. See? I reinforced every seam so the coats would outlast the children's rough winters.
Matthew turns the hanger slowly, so the tag faces her. The familiar handwriting glows in the afternoon light.
I wrote that 1,000 times, and never once thought one would come back to me. You need to come inside and tell me how you came by this coat, please.
She leads him into the small living room, her thimble glinting as she points to a worn armchair. The coat still hangs between them. He sits without letting go of the hanger. Emma settles across from him, her measuring tape still draped around her neck.
Sit, young man, and tell me who you are and why my coat has you knocking on my door after all these years.
My name is Matthew Owens. I was 9 when I got this coat at New Hope Shelter. First thing that ever made me feel seen.
This man was one of those children. One of my coats kept him warm.
I wore it every day for 4 years. The stitches never broke. After I made it big, I took it apart to understand the construction.
You took apart my coat?
Respectfully, every thread. I wanted to replicate that double cross for my designs. It became the signature of my brand.
On the coffee table, the coat lay between them, like a blueprint. Its seams had funded a fashion empire.
He reverse-engineered my little shelter stitch and turned it into a company worth millions. I never imagined.
Critics call it brutalist tenderness, but it's yours, Mrs. Thompson. Every stitch on our Paris runway is yours.
Mine? You mean my stitch is on runways in Paris? I just wanted the children to be warm.
Emma stared at the coat that had traveled further than she ever would. She understood now why he was here, but not yet what he would ask.
I started sewing coats in '98. The bus stop outside the shelter was full of children with nothing between them and the wind.
Her Singer machine was a 1974 hand-me-down that never missed a stitch. She reinforced every seam twice, like armor.
I figured if a coat could survive one winter, it could survive 3 if I made it right. So I invented the double cross. See, when thread runs one way, it weakens. Cross it twice, and it holds like an iron gate.
That stitch is the reason my brand is worth $200 million. Every designer who sees it calls it brutalist tenderness.
I never imagined. I just wanted to keep the children warm. That was all.
Matthew leaned forward, his hands clasped. The coat lay between them like a bridge across 25 years.
Mrs. Thompson, I didn't just come here to show you this coat. I came because your stitch deserves to be more than a memory in a shelter closet.
What do you mean?
For a long moment, neither spoke. The old coat held the light like a sacrament.
I want to offer you a job. Head of craft, with final approval over every garment that leaves our studio.
He didn't offer a check. He offered a title and the power that came with it.
No one will cut a single seam without your approval. Your stitch will be in every collection forever.
Head of craft. At 78. He wants me to stamp my blessing on everything his company does.
You've been invisible for 30 years, Mrs. Thompson. This is your chance to put your hands on every garment we make.
He placed the offer letter on the coffee table beside the old coat. The two objects, decades apart, carried the same weight.
He's not giving me charity. He's giving me a voice. At my age, to have final say over something so big.
You won't be a consultant. You'll be the conscience of the brand. Everything you taught yourself, you'll teach our designers.
The offer hung in the still air. Emma's hand, still wearing the thimble, trembled slightly in her lap.
Do I say yes? Or is there something I need to ask first? I'll do it. But only if your brand donates coats to shelters every year. My pattern, my stitch, my tag.
She's not negotiating for herself. She's negotiating for the next cold child who walks into a shelter. Done. 400 coats every winter, just like you used to make. The tags will say, "Stay warm, baby." I'll see to it personally.
Emma extended her hand, the thimble still on her finger. Matthew took it without hesitation.
Then we have a deal. Mr. Owens, my stitch, your brand. The children get warm coats forever.
Call me Matthew, and welcome to the family. The first coat we donate will be a replica of this one.
The offer letter lay on the table, unsigned, but the promise had already been sealed with a handshake and 2 words.
Stay warm, baby. Those words will outlive me now, carried by every child who puts on one of our coats.
The Paris show is in 3 months. I want you there, backstage, making sure every stitch is yours.
Paris. I've never been further than the shelter across town. But if my stitch is going, I suppose I am too.
2 days later, Emma stepped into the Owens brand studio. A vast sunlit floor with pattern tables, sketches, and rolls of fine wool.
All these young faces staring like I am a museum piece. But my hands know more stitches than their machines.
Everyone, this is Mrs. Thompson, the original creator of our signature stitch. She's your new head of craft.
The designers murmured, some skeptical, but most leaned in when she sat at a sewing machine.
Watch close. Loop the thread once, then again against the grain. That's where the strength lives. This stitch holds through snow, through 3 winters, through a boy's dream. It doesn't break.
The designers crowded closer, some taking notes, others just transfixed by the steady rhythm of her hands.
She's not just teaching them a stitch. She's teaching them why every piece matters. This is our soul now.
This seam here, single stitch. It'll split before the first frost. Let me show you how to fix it.
By the end of her first hour, Emma Thompson had turned a fashion studio into a classroom. Her stitch was no longer anonymous. 3 months later, Emma sat in the Paris atelier under a window facing the Eiffel Tower. The runway show was 7 days away, and 400 children's coats still needed her approval.
Each one of these will go to a child who has nothing. They need to be perfect, just like the ones I left on the shelter doorstep. Check that the double cross is tight at the shoulders. That's where they'll wear out first.
She worked well past midnight, her thimble glinting under the French lamplight. Every coat got the tag, handwritten in her own script. "Stay warm, baby." She sewed each one herself, like a blessing repeated 400 times.
You've been at this for hours. The show will be fine, Mrs. Thompson.
I've been invisible for decades, Matthew. This is my chance to be seen, but more importantly, These coats have to be right for the children.
He watched her adjust a sleeve, her measuring tape still around her neck. She looked like a general reviewing her troops.
Then, let's make sure the world sees you. Tomorrow night, Paris will know who kept a little boy warm.
The atelier quieted as the final coat was approved. In the morning, the first of 400 coats would walk a Paris runway. The night of the show, backstage was a fury of silk, mirrors, and shouted cues. In the center of the storm, Emma stood with a clipboard, final inspecting every child's coat.
Make sure the tag is facing out on every coat. The world needs to see "Stay warm, baby."
Matthew appeared beside her, a headset around his neck, but his eyes only on her.
The first child is about to walk. Are you ready?
A year ago, I was in my basement with a 40-year-old Singer machine. Now, Paris is waiting for my stitch. I've made coats for children nobody saw. Now, I am going to be seen. Yes, I am ready.
The house lights dimmed. The first model, a small boy, in a double-cross stitched coat, stepped through the curtain.
That's my stitch. On that child. On that runway. Dear Lord, they're seeing it.
A murmur rippled through the audience. Flashbulbs caught the double-cross stitch on the child's shoulder. The signature of brutalist tenderness was on display.
They're seeing it, Emma. Now they'll know where it came from.
A second child followed, then a third, each coat carrying the same deliberate double-cross stitch that held the seams together like sutures. On the giant screens flanking the runway, the camera zoomed in on the stitch, its threads intersecting twice against the grain. A whisper grew across the front row. Designers and editors leaned forward, recognizing the signature of Owen's brand, but not yet understanding its source. These were not runway fantasies. They were built for snow and rough sidewalks, for children who would wear them until the sleeves frayed. Then one small girl paused at the end of the catwalk. She turned, and the light caught her tag, "Stay warm, baby," handwritten in Emma's script. A journalist in the front row mouthed the words aloud. Beside her, a buyer pressed a hand to her lips. The room, usually filled with the quiet rustle of programs and whispered critiques, fell into a hush. Backstage, Emma watched the monitor, the glow of it washing over her face. Her hand clung to the measuring tape around her neck as if it were a lifeline.
They're reading it. They're reading my 4 words. Lord, let them understand what it means.
Matthew stood behind her, his hand resting on her shoulder, his own eyes wet as the children continued to walk. The runway became a river of wool and warmth, one child after another, each in a coat bearing the same stitch, the same tag. Every tag read, "Stay warm, baby." The audience began to understand these weren't just garments. They were a message. A fashion editor removed her glasses, wiping her eyes. A prominent buyer whispered to her assistant, her voice catching. The line of children seemed endless. Coats in every color, each with the distinctive double-cross stitch that had started in a Detroit basement. By the time the 40th child stepped onto the catwalk, the applause had turned to a collective, muffled weeping. A little boy in a green coat grinned and spun, showing off the reinforced seams. The room laughed through tears. Spotlights caught the handwritten tags. "Stay warm, baby," flickered on the screens, seen by millions watching worldwide. Backstage, Emma pressed her hands together, as if in prayer. She hadn't moved from the monitor, her thimble still on her finger. The runway was now filled with children, a living testament to one woman's decades of silent sewing. The audience rose to its feet, but not for a designer. They were standing for an invisible thread that had finally, irrevocably, been seen. Emma's shoulders shook as she watched the monitor. Tears cut paths through the powder on her cheeks. The measuring tape around her neck rose and fell with each breath.
All those years in the basement, and I never let myself wonder who would wear them. Now the whole world is wearing my stitch.
Matthew appeared at her side. He didn't say anything at first, just took her hand and gently pulled her away from the monitor.
It's time for your bow, Mrs. Thompson. They need to see the woman who started it all.
I've been hidden my whole life. Can I really walk into that light and let them see me?
He led her through the maze of racks and cables, toward the great curtain of the wings. The roar of the audience grew louder with every step.
Breathe, Emma. 400 coats. 400 children. All those mornings before dawn. You can do this.
Through the gap in the curtain, she could see the runway, blazing under spotlights, the children lined up along its edges, the sea of faces in the dark.
You are not invisible anymore, Emma. Go claim your stitch.
Emma straightened her cardigan, adjusted the measuring tape around her neck, and stepped toward the blinding light. Emma walked onto the runway. The spotlights found her silver crown braid, her measuring tape, her thimble. The children parted like she was royalty.
Every step I take, every stitch I ever made, led to this light.
She stopped at the center, turned slowly to face the audience, and bowed. The measuring tape swung gently around her neck. The sound hit her like a wave. A standing ovation that shook the rafters, cameras flashing like 1,000 stars. Tears streamed down her face, but she kept her head high, her hands clasped together beneath her thimble. In the front row, Matthew Owens clapped until his palms stung, his own face wet, mouthing the words he'd carried for 25 years. Stay warm, baby.
Not bad for an invisible grandmother with a 40-year-old sewing machine.
She turned and gestured toward the children, who now surrounded her, each wearing her stitch, her tag. The true stars of her show, the runway bloomed with little hands and wool sleeves. 400 coats danced under the Paris lights, each one a promise kept. Emma Thompson, 78 years old, head of craft, took her bow and was invisible no more. Backstage erupted as Emma stepped through the curtain. Reporters and photographers swarmed, microphones thrust toward her face. Mrs. Thompson, how does it feel to see your stitch on the runways of Paris? A journalist called out. Emma scanned the crowd until she found Matthew. He cut through the noise and pulled her into a long embrace.
We did it.
You did it, Emma. You started it all, 45 years ago in a Detroit basement.
Emma pulled back and looked at the racks of coats lining the backstage walls, each with her tag. She touched one gently.
These coats still need to get to the children who need them. That's what matters most.
400, just like we promised. The first shipment goes out next week.
Mama always said, give them something that lasts. I hope she's watching.
The celebration continued around her, but Emma's eyes never left the coats. Her stitch was famous now, but its true purpose remained unchanged. 6 months after Paris, a delivery truck backed up to New Hope Shelter. Grace Henderson signed for 400 boxes, each holding a coat with Emma's stitch.
Emma, look. The tags are just like you used to write.
That's because I still write them. Every single one.
Children from the shelter crowded around as the coats were handed out, their faces lighting up like the models on the Paris runway.
Worth more than any runway show, isn't it?
This is why I started. Not for the cameras, but for this.
You've been doing this longer than anyone knew, Emma. Now the whole world knows.
One little girl clutched her new coat and looked up at Emma. She pointed at the tag and mouthed the words without speaking.
That tag used to be my secret. Now it's a promise I can keep forever.
Emma buttoned the top button of the girl's coat, her thimble catching the winter light. 400 coats, and this one was the most important. Days later, Emma sat in her favorite armchair, an envelope in her lap. The return address was a shelter, the handwriting a child's.
Another letter from a little one. They always find a way to fill my heart.
She unfolded the paper carefully, her thimble catching the light. Dear Mrs. Thompson, my coat is the warmest thing I've ever worn. The stitch on the sleeve looks like a hug. Thank you for seeing me.
A hug. That's what I always hoped the double cross would feel like.
She pinned the letter to the wall beside her sewing machine, next to the faded photograph of a boy in a blue coat.
You started it all, Matthew. A cold little boy who kept a coat for 25 years.
The old singer sat silent, but her hands still itched to sew. There would be more coats next winter.
Stay warm, baby. Every child deserves to hear it.
She settled deeper into her chair, the measuring tape still around her neck, and closed her eyes with a smile. The next morning, the basement light flickered on. Emma sat at her singer, a fresh bolt of wool across the table.
There's always a child who needs a coat. May as well start on next year's batch.
The singer hummed, its rhythm unchanged since 1974. The double cross stitch appeared under her fingers like a signature.
The cameras are gone. The applause faded. But this machine still works. And so do I.
On the wall, the photograph of the little boy in the blue coat seemed to watch her. 2 letters were pinned beside it now. She paused, looked at the photo, and smiled. Not for Paris, not for the brand, but for the boy who kept his coat for 25 years.
I'll sew until my hands can't. That's what I do. That's who I am.
The needle pierced the wool, thread crossing thread. The double cross stitch forming the seam of a new coat. A tag lay on the table, already filled with those 4 words in her handwriting. Stay warm, baby. The words of a grandmother who never stopped sewing, never stopped seeing, and was invisible no more.